This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould. Thanks for being here, guys. This is episode number 107. So we got a lot of, if you're new to the podcast, I have a lot of new listeners coming in. Behind this episode, there's over 100 hours of interviews of the men and women of law enforcement, kind of just telling their stories totally unedited, unabashed, unfiltered. So just be cautious of that. Not always the best podcast to be listening to with the kids in the car. But if you want to hear what police officers really deal with in a very honest way, this is the podcast for you. I'm glad you found us. Always asking for 5-star reviews on Apple just to get more eyes on the show. We've had some notable guests, TV personalities and things like that in the past, all because our ranking in the search, when you search for us, we pop up now because of reviews and things like that. So it is pretty important that you get that done for me, and I love you for it. If you want to, I think I'm going to get right to the sponsors and supporters of the show. Oh man, I have like two versions. I have the real version, then I have one with the people's names like sounded out so that I say them right. Yeah, I'm gonna wing it. It's gonna be fine. Let's get this started. So these are the people that keep the lights on. They donate every month. I'm so grateful for Sarah Pomeroy, Ricardo Zuniga, Lane Campbell, Thomas Connell, Andrew Biggs, Luke Irvig, Corey Payne, Brandon Hooker, Lauren Stimson, Jeremy Woods, Tony Fahey, Jacob Ruth, Rich Emery, William James Long, that's Deputy William James Long to you, the great Gary Steiner, Richard Wilson, Scott O'Donnell, and the great David Diaz. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the new donators. I appreciate that. It's really awesome. If you love the show and you really you listen to all the episodes and you think it's great and you want to support it, go to thingspolicey.com and click on donate. You can do a one-off, or you can be one of the blessed saints of the show and do it monthly. Even just if everybody listen based on my listens, based on my downloads, if everybody just gave $1 a month, I could just do this for a living. So that would be fantastic. Keep that in mind. You might have a spare $1 hanging around if you really, really love the show. Appreciate it. One more thing before we get started, and I do have a fantastic guest today. I wanted to just, in a move to try to motivate more reviews on iTunes, I'm going to read the first couple that pop up here. So review number 697. Great podcast. Best podcast available. Can't get enough of it. Totally agree with you, Tony Thayer. Excellent. Very much enjoy your podcast. I wish you success. FYI, I grew up in Belchertown near you and went to UMass. Beautiful country. Thank you, GT Vert. Nice names. I love this podcast. I love the stories and the experiences that these cops are able to share. Steve is a great host. 100% agree with that whole statement. Daniel G3. Love the show. The stories are awesome to listen to. 77 Smoke 77. Thanks, guys. Awesome. I really appreciate the reviews. The 5 stars helps us do it. But let's get down to brass tacks. Let's not have any more distractions. I want to get right to this guy. Super interesting what he's got going on. He's got 24 years as a cop, currently rank a lieutenant. He's in the DC metro area, larger agency. He's had the specialties of school resource officer, auto theft, SWAT, and was an instructor or is an instructor at the police academy. Also, actor and on-set advisor, which fascinating to me because when I was in LA, tons of cops in LA, obviously, tons of Hollywood people, so it's a natural, relationship there. But there's a ton of cops, so how do you stand out? How do you get into acting? Or how do you become an advisor? There's a ton of guys that could advise. A lot of cops know the ins and outs of handling firearms and stuff like that. Is there certifications? Do you know somebody to get it in? I don't know. I'm going to ask our guests here. Without further ado, let's welcome on Victor Dobro for episode number 107. Sir, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. This is the earliest I've ever done a podcast. We were going to go like mid-morning, but then I have people coming working in my basement where my studio is. And are you on overnights?
My shift rotates. I'm actually on day work, but it's funny because I almost came in late for the interview because I had an aggressive driver cutting me off. And the drivers that sticks the license out the window, but the window was rolled all the way up. The music was blasting, and the person refused to even acknowledge me. So I was like, "Oh, great! That's how my morning has started." And I haven't had like one of those cases in a couple years, but I had to call for backup. I had to like count the three and say, okay, and I explained to this driver that I just really needed her just to turn down her music and listen to me, and maybe if she could explain the way she was driving, maybe I could use some discretion. And I asked her, I said, would you like warnings or citations? And since she didn't respond, I said, okay, I guess I'll give you a few citations. So she ended up getting multiple citations, and that just shows you that sometimes people they talk themselves into jail, or they'll literally ask for their own citations. All she had to do was say, sorry, I was running late.
It's unbelievable. Isn't it unbelievable?
Here you go. Here's all your citations. So, I mean, I'm sure she was having a rough morning, but I explained to her, don't have to write citations. I have discretion, and I'd like to hear what she had to say, but she said she wanted to plead the fifth. So now she can either pay their tickets or go to court and explain herself to a judge.
Yeah, you saw too many sovereign citizen videos on YouTube, where they're like, I'm a free woman traveling or something. But it's like so many. You're so right, Victor. I'm on patrol as well, and I always say people talk themselves into the money site. It's like I'd pull you over to give you a warning, and then we take it from there. Most times, even if you've got a sketchy driving history, I give people as much leeway as I can, unless I'm on like a traffic enforcement detail, then it's different. But like, it's unreal what people can, and you're like, I'm just going to go back and write you tickets. I've done exactly that. And they don't, okay.
Yep. So they don't care. I don't care.
Right, man. That's so aggravating, especially when you got somewhere to be, Victor, let me ask you up front, acting as a police officer, was this something you've always like had a passion for and then got the courage to try it? Because it's more recent, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I was a cop in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 8 years, and they film everything out there, really, and including Breaking Bad was probably the best show ever. But I've seen them. I've worked on TV sets just blocking streets. Like, I worked on a set of Employee of the Month with Jessica Simpson, and then Around the Bend with Christopher Walken. And I thought it was interesting, but I didn't know how to get into it. Do you have to know somebody, or how do you get an agent? So I had a few cop friends that were like started off in background, and they started having a few roles, and even then I was still intimidated. I didn't know how they were doing it. I didn't bother them too much. I just thought it was interesting. But I started going to these Comic-Cons, these conventions, and like horror cons and autograph signings. And I would talk to these actors, and they would see my face, and they would say, "Oh, you look so familiar," even though they don't know me. And they say, "Who? What do you do?" And I'd tell them I'm a cop, and they're like, "Wow, you're a cop." And they're like, "Oh, I had a few people tell me that, well, you should get into consulting. We have police officers on set, of these shows, and you should think about that." And I was like, well, how do you do that? Or like, man, I can't move to LA. I'm a career cop in another, other
right.
side of the country. So it went from like being interested to like really researching, and then just doing all the research, and like, how do you get into the entertainment industry? Like, what avenues are there? What do you need to do? And I just started like, just checking off everything off the checklist. But I just slowly started, with first thing I ever did was like a fan film for free. And then I was all of a sudden, being able to easily book these like background roles on like they call them big studio projects. So I was doing background for a while, which was easy for me to do, but I had aspirations to do more. And some people don't, some people think that's enough for them. But I wanted to do more. So I've been very fortunate, just, within a year, I'm in the actors union and I'm on two, obviously, HBO, we own the city. But I'm filming another TV show right now with a major, movie star. And it's fun to do, and I'm still learning, and I'm still trying to do the consulting too. But the consulting is just such a small niche of the industry. It's hard to get into. It's hard to get paying jobs. So I'm really using that, and marketing myself as an actor with the consulting behind. My experience helped with the script just like a couple weeks ago on a major TV show. And they really didn't know what they wanted my character to say. And I told them, like what I would say. And they're like, that sounds great. So, that's basically the gist of being a consultant is you're helping. And that's talking with the writers and directors on set. That's not having to get approval from like, a producer, in another state 3 weeks in advance. It's like, split decision. Like, I think, we should say this or do this, and having the, having the respect from the directors and the actors that, what you're doing. Yeah, that sounds good. But I've consulted with John Bernthal on We Own the City and, all those different actors, and they appreciate it. A lot of actors ask me for advice and stuff. So
Sure.
It's a long-winded answer, but yeah.
No,
Roundabout. That's where we're at now. So a little over a year into acting, but I'm having a blast. And I got 4 more years of police work still, at least.
that's exciting. No, that's very interesting, Victor. Perfect timing. You're just enough. You can build up the rapport and get FaceTime with a lot of different people when you're finishing out your police career. The consulting thing is interesting because we've all seen movies where they badly needed a consultant. Like how many movies have you seen, major productions, major box office movies, and like their holsters like in front of their front pocket, like it's like up here, and it's it's like someone took the duty belt and turned it, and it's like obviously the actor, you could tell, put it on and was like, well, I'm just he's not sitting I'm just standing in the scene and this is most comfortable, so I'm just gonna wear it like this, and it looks so bad. It actually ruins the whole scene for me. I guess most people it doesn't, but for cops or people who have had to carry a sidearm, that stuff pisses me. It takes me out of the movie, and all I can look at is this bullshit setup the guy's got, and it drives me nuts.
I know. Trust me. It comes down to a lot of things, but so you got a mix. You have a mixture of what kind of budget do they have? So can they even pay for a consultant? Do they want a consultant? And if they do they want it to be police realistic, or do they want it to look good for camera? And then, so that's how you get the final product. So like, I'll tell them what's police realistic. But every movie producer and director is going to have more experience of what looks cooler on camera. I can give you an example. Like, I'm in a TV show that's still filming, and I play a police officer current day, but I'm also a sniper. And so I'm doing like a sniper scene, and it looks really cool, but I don't get to build like a true sniper hide, recessed in a room on an elevated floor. But I do have a spotter, but that instead of the spotter like watching the target with binoculars and calling stuff out for me, what he's doing is he's shining, he's flaring, they call it flaring, his flashlight against the monitor and my rifle. So the viewer could see how cool it looks with light kind of cascading or whatever you call it over the rifle. Now, in real life, your spotter would never take their flashlight and shine it on your gun while you're in a hide that doesn't even have a built-in hide. So, it's about what looks cool on camera, but you do want to show some realism. So you got to mix the two, but it is a lot of it comes down to budget, and it's like spur of the moment, like, oh, what would a real cop say here? What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
Because you think, if you don't know the industry, you would think that everything is all planned out, where they're walking, how they're talking, everything is planned out. But the only thing that's really planned out is really the script, which can be changed on the fly. But like they call it the blocking of a scene, like how they're where they're walking, how they're walking. Um, all that is decided like spur of the moment, really.
Yeah, it's incredible. They have all the big toys, but they are still very much kind of everything's kind of fluid. I noticed that. I remember hearing Seth Rogen. Who's kind of a douche. I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air about him, but he's a burnout, but he's funny. Got some good movies. I remember him. He super bad. He's talking about the police consultant that he hired in this interview, and he's like, and if you watch the movie, you notice they're squared away in that movie. Like they have the vests, and like he even adjusts it like in the movie, kind of like you would as a cop. And he's got the stuff on his duty belt, looks pretty okay. Even the firearm they're carrying is like one of the firearms, Southern California, the kind of issues. It's like one of the stainless steel Smith & Wesson that Lonzo had in Training Day. And so it all kind of looks pretty good. But then he says how he fired the guy. He's like, yeah, well, he got us all set up. And then I was like, halfway through the production, I was like, I don't need this cop. And I fired him. It's like, well, thanks to the cop, you look halfway decent. Like you probably could have used him to the end, but it's just kind of, I think that must be the push and pull in Hollywood. They're very liberal. And he almost seemed like he resented the fact that he needed a cop to tell him. But because of it, he looked really good. Like he looked right.
No, you hit it on the head. It's a weird dichotomy because, yes, like most of Hollywood is liberal, like an extreme large amount, and there are a lot of people that don't like police in this day and age, and they're so so tough on the profession. But then they're making movies about cops, and it's not all bad cops. They have hero cops, they have bad cops. Very rarely do you see shows or movies where it's just like a normal cop.
Yeah, right. No one wants to see that. We want to see the crazy. Either the cop like wakes up in the morning and like has a shot of whiskey and throws on his shoulder holster and is that kind of cop, or he's like an action-packed like human canine unit. He's always running and jumping and
I get it, man.
Tackling people. That's great. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm excited for you. That's like I said, it's perfect timing. And the nice thing about police work is you're still like relatively young man. Like you're not going to get out of this career like hunched over with like, all gray and like, well, some guys do, but if you do it right, you won't. And you're going to have
heading down that path. But yeah, like physical fitness is big and nutrition. And, I weighed myself this morning and I'm the lightest I've weighed since sniper school, like 10 years ago, looking at my certificate. But I went through sniper training like 10 years ago, and this is the lightest I've weighed. So, like, I've lost the 40 pounds of COVID fat that I had gained slowly as I left the SWAT team. I went to the academy. I started gaining weight in the academy, which I thought was weird because I was still working out. But I got promoted to sergeant. I gained 15 pounds. I got promoted to lieutenant. I gained another 10 pounds. And so I say recently, but gradually over like a year and a half, I lost about 40 pounds. And it doesn't happen overnight, but yeah, I mean, you gotta prioritize your health and wellness. I just, you have family, you want to be around for them, and you want to be around to enjoy your retirement. Nobody wants to die of a heart attack before you even retire, and you have kids, so
yeah,
just trying to.
That's the sad part. There that stat out there that like a huge percentage of cops retire and then they die within 5 years. It's like a good friend of mine, Ken Roybal, is a retired LAPD policeman, and I could tell it was kind of like bothering him, like because he retired and he's in good shape and all that, but he said he thought about it, and when he makes it past the ages that are milestones, he's like, I didn't die, I'm still, but he's active, he's doing stuff, he's like use it or lose it, right? He's cognizant of his body and like what he needs to do. We know the guys that aren't gonna make it, the guys that, like you said, they slowly expand as the age goes on, the rank goes up, and they're, before you know it, they're like, could you even put a duty belt on at this point? We don't know.
All right, I know.
So Victor, can you take us back back 24 years to the first hot call you responded to.
Yeah, it's tough. If you ask these questions for a younger officer or an officer that hasn't been on as long, they're going to have more stuff fresh in memory. But I mean, you talk about 24 years ago. So I mean, whatever year it was, I was starting the academy in '97, but I actually got hurt and graduated in '98. But I mean, I worked in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we were busy immediately. I was using force. I was getting in car chases. It was like I went there to work basically because of cops on TV featuring Albuquerque and watching them getting car chases and getting in fights. And then
The Wild West.
Yeah, they had cool 1911 handguns. You could buy your own handgun after a year on, and I did. I had a Kimber Custom.
Sweet.
You know, I switched guns like pants. Then DOJ came in and changed all that, 10 years ago. But first, the hottest call. I mean, just the first day, I'm taking domestics and robbery calls, and I'm running priority. You know, as a rookie with an FTO, and I had some good FTOs and I had some mean FTOs, and really my best FTOs were the ones that were tough on me. But I had a guy, Phil Sadiasi was his name. He was Native American, from New Mexico, I guess, in that region, and he wouldn't say a word to me. And he told me to go find a violation. I couldn't find a violation, so I was all stressed out. He yells at me to pull over, get out, and then he gets in the car. Which I thought was funny is he's driving really aggressively looking for a violation, and he couldn't find a violation. But no, I mean, just the first day I'm running domestics, and I'm going to robberies, and I'm running priority in the call. So, yeah, I mean, that's the hot call is like off of day one, and every day is the same thing. It's we call them priority or priority one calls.
Yeah.
You know, the in progress violent crimes. You know, and there you go.
Do you have a lot of fallout for that? I mean, it sounds like Albuquerque right away hit the ground running. Did you lose like academy mates? Did people go, this is too much, or did people pretty much know what they were getting into?
Well, times have changed. I mean, I've been around, and every generation of cops change, and every 10 years is a different culture. But so when I went in, I got hurt boxing. I dislocated my elbow. It was the most pain I've ever been in my life. But we had a 50% attrition rate. We had about 50 students, and they only graduated 22.
Wow.
But it was basically a 50%. But so they didn't graduate any females. Everyone got hurt or quit or was fired. And still to this day, I still think that's how it should be as far as how tough an academy should be. Because back in my day, if you said, I think I'm going to quit, like this is too hard, they would say, see ya. Now, there's always still politics involved. Even 20 years ago, there's politics involved. If we need like the, like the affirmative action hire, I know for a fact because I had a friend, and rest in peace, he passed away, but he was Vietnamese, and he wanted to quit on Hell Night while we held a lean and rest push-up position for like 30 minutes.
Ooh.
Like lean and rest. And he said he wanted to quit. Well, they told him to fall out. They took him to the offices. He came back. They didn't fire him, and they didn't let him quit. But I've seen other people say, I've had enough, I quit. And they just let him walk off. So the politics of like the racial demographic makeup of a class is important. The total number of people that can graduate is important because the chief has to answer to the mayor, and they have to tell the public we're going to graduate 50 officers, in two months.
Right.
When they should be just looking at trying to, hire as many qualified and trained that are good, for the position. So, I mean, that's just, that was tough, but, times have changed. So it was hard to get hired in the East Coast. So I go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. They changed up the boxing. So we boxed on our feet for only 30 seconds and then like a minute and a half on our knees. So that did away with a lot of the injuries. But over time, especially recently, I tell you what, like police work has really changed since 2015, in my opinion. So when you had the Dallas 5 and all the different riots nationwide, which I think were fueled by CNN.
Absolutely.
With the coverage of everything. But we saw classes of people, like during the riots, every police agency was losing recruits in the middle of an academy just because they were getting scared. And then others quitting as soon as they graduated. And so that, we're still fighting that today. Like they're not necessarily quitting in the academy, but we're just not able to get as many people to apply. But, I remember in the late 90s, I couldn't get hired because of affirmative action. I had a clean record. I had a 2-year college degree in criminal justice, and I wanted to become a cop. I was 21, 22 years old, and I couldn't get hired. And I was acing all my tests. I passed every test I ever took, and I couldn't get hired. And I said, what's going on? And I said, screw this. And so I went to an agency that hired me based off me passing the tests. And not only that, I'll tell you real quick that the recruiting department, they met me. The background detective investigator met me at the airport. He took me to lunch. And this is a retired New York detective doing civilian background work in Albuquerque, hiring me from the East Coast. But he set me up on all my appointments. He took me to police stations and introduced me as like a cadet. And I'm still applying. I didn't even know what a cadet, was. I didn't know their terminology. So it was really impressive that they recruited me like a college athlete. But I tell people, how many agencies do that? Does your agency do that? Does my agency do that? They'll set up a booth and give out free erasers.
Right.
And pamphlets. And they're not picking people up at the airport. They're not taking people to lunch. So
they might need to start doing that.
Yeah, if you're having problems recruiting, blame yourself. What are you doing what are you not doing that you can do? But yeah, so over the years we've seen that it's now we can't get anyone to apply and no one wants to do it, and I understand why. I totally understand why. And you're seeing the ramifications of it in the stats right now.
Yeah, the hiring bonuses I see when I flip through Facebook or when I'm online are insane. If you obviously the Pacific Northwest cut off their nose to spite their face, so they're Seattle will give you like $20,000. If you already have an academy and you can be transferred, they will give you $20,000. Then the cadets or recruits, they're the candidates, they'll give like 10, 15. It's madness. I can't believe, because like you said, there was a time when becoming a police officer was like super competitive and difficult. And that's why a lot of, even the chief of one of the agencies I worked for, I remember him saying that, and guys like in your generation, like they moved out of state to become cops and get the experience and then ended up coming back to their home states because it was like that competitive. I remember when I was at Westfield State College, on career day, there was 2 LAPD officers there in full uniform, and squared away from their recruitment division, like the friggin' Army or so, Navy. They were like right there, flew these guys out, full duty belts, to get people to come work, to recruit the right people to work for them. And Westfield State College is not, it's a criminal justice school, but it's not like some big school. These guys must have been on a tour. They must have been going, all around the Northeast looking for, but that was around the time, that was late 90s, early 2000s when, they were really looking for like top tier candidates. They were getting guys right out of college with 4-year degrees to sign up and come over. I was a computer major, and the guys are like, feeding me this line. They're like, oh, that's fine. They said, just, we have a whole tech division. They said, you're gonna, we'll be honest, you'll be on third shift in like, South LA for a few years, but then after that you can, I'm like, this sounds terrible.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's so different. And like what you were saying about the police academies and their standards, it's pretty bad in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a state of small communities. There's Boston, a few big cities, but there's a million little agencies in Mass. We all go to regional academies. That's just the way it is. In Massachusetts, every town, almost no matter how small, has a chief of police. Even if it's just like a chief with 2 patrolmen. That's just the way Mass runs it. So the politics are bad because now you get, say in an academy class has 50 officers from 25 different agencies. Those agencies have a lot riding on that guy. and they've spent a lot of money that some of these towns can barely afford to send someone to police academy. And if you start hearing your guy's not making it, the chief, he might show up at the academy director's office and be like, what do we need to do to, get this guy through? And now the chiefs they're the ones feeding the academies. They're the ones giving them money. So it's like the director's kind of beholden to them in a way, unless it's egregious and ethical.
Yeah.
If it's something else, if it's like they need to go in the Fat Boy program or something, they need to be able to run better.
I get it.
They kind of drag them through. And we saw just what you said. We had day one, this kid fall out right away and disappeared. And he was back in class the next day.
Yeah. Because
this city like desperately needed him to do this. But it made the whole experience to us kind of like icky. It was like, well, what the hell? The whole point of being so hard on us was to thin us out a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, when I started, if they caught you in a lie or you got in a bar fight, on the weekend, they'd fire you in Albuquerque. Then I worked for this large agency, and I would catch student officers in a lie, and I would give it up the chain, and they would say, well, they got to give him another chance, but that's his only warning. If he lies again, he's probably going to get terminated. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you can lie about what you're doing as a student officer and not get terminated. And so different people have different standards, and it's the bottom line of how many officers are we going to graduate, and like you can't let somebody resign. I mean, I had a rookie officer not too long ago that couldn't deal with seeing dead bodies while on training, and went back and forth and looked at and the decision was above my head, but in my humble opinion, if you can't deal with dead bodies, then you can't do any death investigations. You can't be on the scene of a crash or take a routine death call at a hospital that we would have to take. Then you're not qualified to be a police officer. So other people might say, well, you meet the qualifications. It might just be that you can't perform in that area. And I'm like, well, that's a area. How could you become a cop, be a cop, and be able to say, well, I can do everything a cop can do, but I just can't deal with dead bodies. So, and ironic enough that officer was retrained, but transferred to another station. They worked with, and the problem came up again. Same problem came up again, but ironically, what I heard is that they put this person in like the homicide unit, or either the evidence unit or the homicide unit. And I saw the other day that this officer is now got Officer of the Month award. So I'm like,
wow,
what what do I know? Just you can be a great cop, just avoid all death calls.
Yeah, nobody likes them. I mean, they're like the worst call, but I mean, yeah, you got to be able to at least stand there on the scene.
No, but how do you so what we allow to pass through is just unconscionable. That shows that we are lowering our standards. Other agencies say, no, we're holding our standards. We're not. You're not hiring the right people and you're not retaining the right people. And then the people get in trouble, and then who gets the blame? Us. It's like a circle, call it like circle of violence, but this is like a circle of stupidity. So
yeah, I worked for the LAPD background guys, and 100% lowering standards, 100%. Not the background investigators. We were holding the line, but we were getting cases kicked back to us going, look at this guy again. And we're like, but we already said no. And they're like, well, they don't care.
It's not just like, oh, we got to relax on the marijuana. Instead of making it 15 times over 5 years, a little bit more recent. It's not just that. It's just in generally speaking, allowing people to slide through and retaining people that shouldn't be retained. I've had recruits that couldn't write reports in English, and I had the same recruit would write like a fictional narrative. Like we just took like a routine residential burglary call or something like that, and this officer would write down things that didn't happen, and I'm like, why would? He's like, I'm like, you just couldn't remember, or you just were filling in. Like you would never purposefully write something that didn't happen, And then the person had such bad, writing that I asked him to like do this little paper assignment, and he came back and it was written in really great like handwriting, and you could tell it wasn't his handwriting. And I asked him like 3 times to his face, and he admitted he had his wife do it, his assignment for him. I'm like, you can't even write something, a 2-page thing in English, which helps me figure out where you need help. So me thinking, okay, well, this guy has to go back for English 101 writing, and then somehow that can get twisted to be like, oh, you're just a xenophobe. You're fearful of like foreigners, and like, well, no. What I'm fearful is that you'll improperly retain a police officer that can't read, write, or speak English. That's kind of important. It's cool to be bilingual, but you better get the English part of it.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's kind of important.
That's another case of, a year, 2 years later, I see, Officer of the Month, and I see this officer's name and face, and I'm like, good for him. You know what I mean? Like in my opinion, he wouldn't have made it off of training, or I wouldn't say that. Like he would have been mandated to go, and they have mandated people to go back for like, to local community college for different, coursework, but they don't want to resign. The agency's not going to force them to. They'll just work with them. But how do you? It's not just report writing 101. It's like English writing 101. But I've learned to like basically lower my standards of what I reject and say, okay, well, that's your writing style. For the most part, it looks pretty good to me. Because it's tricky as a supervisor when you kick stuff back. You get accused of favoritism, or you like this officer or that officer, or you're just picking on this one, and then I get tired. Get tired of the false allegations, and I'm like, okay, whatever. It all looks good to me now. You know what I mean?
Right. Just put the old stamp on it.
Yeah. Problem with that, then I go ahead and blame the commander that told me I gotta be careful and be nice to everyone. It's like, okay, everyone gets a pass.
Yeah, I know. It's just throw all standards out the window. It's screwed up. I see it everywhere. It's not just East Coast. It's all over. The Southwest there, like where you started, seems like the Wild West. I mean, I have a friend who's works in a border town in Arizona, and it is wild. I've only heard bits and pieces, but like they have a counterpart just over the border, this other town that's like the American town, but it's the Mexican version, and she sent me some pictures of like this just cops in her counterpart town massacred by the cartel because, I mean, they're not playing ball. They're the cartel will make it clear they own a lieutenant or whatever they have over there, and they'll say, hey, you've been told to lay off these guys, and these cops aren't listening. So they don't just kill the cops; they kill their whole family. And and it's just right there. It's like, so my question to her is like, I got to chat with her and be like, how real is the danger of that happening over? I think they know better not to mess with U.S. law enforcement like that because we would obviously hammer them, I would think. But it's literally like it's like 2 streets over, but on the other side of the border, and these cops are being massacred. It's like,
yeah,
damn.
I know. Yeah. Albuquerque's in the center it's central New Mexico, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It was bad back then when I was there, and it's even worse now. The morale is low. When I was there at the height, they had 1,100 officers, and I think now they haven't been 1,100 in 15 some years. So they've gotten down to like 900, 800. So they can't retain. They won't pay them properly.
They're super far left now too, aren't they? New Mexico.
What's that?
They're pretty blue there, aren't they? Pretty far left now, New Mexico.
They've always been, and that's what I was about to explain. Is when I first started, I didn't care about politics. Like I was like, my father was like a devoted Republican, and I didn't care, and I was like an independent when I actually started caring a little bit. So I was like voting for independent Green Party people for a couple of elections. But when I went to New Mexico, I didn't care like what party the governor was or the mayor. What I cared about is, did they like police? And Governor Garrett at the time, even though he was a little crazy with like wanting to legalize marijuana, I gave him credit because at least he brought it up. He was the only governor in America that brought up the topic. And I said, well, he's got some balls if he's bringing it up. But other than that, I thought, man, this guy's a pretty cool guy. And then I had like Marty Chavez in Albuquerque, and he was a great guy. And I didn't realize like these governors and mayors were Democrats, and I didn't care. Like Marty Chavez gave me like a 12% raise. And I'm like, he likes the police. Like, so I didn't even care about politics. But as I got older and you would start to see like these like really inept politicians like on the opposite spectrum of like their view on life and governance, and I would start to pay attention and I would see like, this guy's a bad mayor. And then you would see what party he's on. And then you get another, or a county executive, a mayor, a governor. And then you start to see how politics do play a large part. I mean, I work for a politician. I work for a chief who's selected by a politician. I do what my politicians tell me to do at the local level. So it doesn't matter even, if a couple years ago we had a president and the governors, half the governors didn't want to agree with. And then now we're the same way. Right. So like am I raising my hand and, swearing to uphold the Constitution of the state of Maryland or of the United States? And what if there's two conflicts?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like COVID, I'll tell you what, COVID was crazy. They're telling us, we're going to arrest you if you don't wear a mask, and we're going to arrest you if you have church and you're not supposed to be in church. But we're also telling criminals that we have to release them because of overcrowding and because it's inhumane to keep criminals in jail during COVID pandemic. So wait a minute, we're going to let murderers and rapists out of jail, and you expect me to go to church and arrest an old lady because she wants to go to church and she's not wearing a mask? You know what I mean? And so like that's who we work for, is politicians that decide this on a whim.
Crazy, like upside down world. You can't go to church. We're letting the prisoners out. It's like, what?
Yeah, like that's, whatever.
That's when we were in Southern California just a couple years ago, and the sheriff there just started like issuing warnings. He's like, hey, we're letting like a bunch of people out. They're violent. They're no good. Sure enough, they'd hit the communities and they start getting rearrested. It was like scary, like you're a guy I'm a guy going out to work and I got a wife and 3 kids at home. I don't want to hear that on the radio, that in my area they're letting out these violent criminals and they're just like roaming the towns.
Well, that's what it is.
What the hell?
It's recidivism because of the hashtag bail reform. And recidivism has always been a problem, but it's just insane right now. Take a look at every, killing, murder, cop killing, all these cases, and then look at the background. It's the person. I mean, how are you on the street if you have priors for a homicide? How are you on the street with robberies? You have multiple. You're out on bail on an armed robbery charge, and you commit another armed robbery. Like at some point, and so they talk about like criminal justice reform. They're talking about police, but we're just arresting people. We do not want us to arrest people. So when I think about criminal justice reform, I think about prosecution's office and judges, and that's the people elect those positions. So you're going to get what you want in your area, and that's why local politics is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people should definitely pay attention to what's directly around them. I mean, I remember right before we left, I think it was like Pasadena or maybe Glendale. Someone had they arrested the same guy in a 24-hour period 3 or 4 times for Grand Theft Auto because they made it a misdemeanor. So he got the last time he killed somebody, and then they held on to him.
I arrested somebody twice in 24 hours in Albuquerque, and it wasn't a shock to me. I've also arrested 4 people in one day in Albuquerque, and it's just a revolving door. I mean, at one point they were so crowded that as an officer I would need permission from my sergeant to arrest somebody. Other than a domestic violence, I would need permission. So, imagine you doing a handcuffing and you're all the stuff going through your mind. Oh wait, I got to ask sergeant and explain to him what happened if I can arrest this person.
That sucks. I mean, that state is I remember we drove through it when we drove cross country. It is a cool state, but it is, I mean, a part of it we drove through was just in the middle of nowhere in like an ancient volcanic valley. And you would come to a house like every half an hour. I don't know where they got food.
It's the least populated state and one of the largest states in the nation. And it's also got one of the highest poverty rates and a lot of Native American reservations and casinos. So it's definitely unique. It has its own problems with poverty, domestic violence, suicide, but they also have like the crack, the meth, heroin, and all that. But I mean, it's the Wild West. I mean, there's some stuff about the state that's real good. You have a right to bear arms. You can have a gun in your car, and I'm big 2A proponent. And it's beautiful. Scenery. If you like the outdoors and stuff. If you want to live off the land, and Santa Fe is nice, but it's very expensive. But there's a big gap between the haves and have in New Mexico, especially Santa Fe.
Yeah, I noticed that Santa Fe is beautiful, and it's. We were shocked to find out it's 7,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah, you get adjusted to it. I took these. I was telling you about these physical or these entrance exams, and I was doing physical agility tests. So I took one for Baltimore, and I'm running around downtown Baltimore around the block, around strip clubs and right next to the main police station. And, I finished the run in 12 minutes. And then the very next weekend I go to Albuquerque, or I'm sorry, it was 11 minutes. And then I go to Albuquerque and it's a mile high and I do the run again. And I'm about 30 seconds slower and a little bit more winded. And so you could tell. That's why, a lot of the Ethiopian marathon runners would train in Albuquerque because of the high altitude. So it's basically like Mile High Stadium.
Yeah.
That's what we have in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. It's called the High Desert. So you get of course you get accustomed to it, and then it's like nothing else, and you don't have the humidity. It's just dry, but the temperature does drop overnight.
Yeah, I like that. We lived in the high desert in California before we came back, and we actually love that kind of climate. Nighttime's always good sleeping weather, even if it gets hot out during the day. When we were in Santa Fe, I did notice, first time in my life, this happened to me. I was pushing a carriage with all of our stuff hanging on it, kind of up at a grade in Santa Fe, and I was like, I felt like I had to take an extra breath. I was like, I got to double up here. What's going on? And then, I think my wife was like, well, we're elevated. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels uncomfortable. It makes you anxious. You're like, I feel like I'm doing normal stuff, but I feel just a little bit more out of breath.
Very, very quickly though.
Yeah. It's amazing to think that the guys in Mile High Stadium, that seems like a super good advantage. I wonder if teams get there early to play them to kind of acclimate,
Yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy. Victor, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre moment on the job?
I do have one. I don't have the follow-up backstory, but I can tell you that ask this question. It's easy because it's the craziest one, but there's not much to it. I took a short person, aka some people use the term midget, but I guess that's politically incorrect.
Right.
So, dwarfism or a short person. But I took a call for a naked short person homicide in the middle of the road. Like this person, because you don't see many short people, and you don't see many naked homicide victims, and you don't see many in the middle of the street. So this had all three.
Weird.
I've never, and I work this area, but I get a call, for I don't even know if it was person unconscious or down and out, or if whoever the caller was, if they even knew the person was deceased. But I pull up in the middle of the street, and there's a short person, pants pulled down and deceased. And I don't remember if it was a shooting or a blunt head injury or what. But I'm like, how often that's something, because a lot of cops will say, oh, I've seen and done everything. And we kind of have, we've all dealt with dead bodies, or we all had homicide calls, but how often do you take a naked short person homicide?
Yeah, that's bizarre. It's such a small percentage of the population. So the chances of like you coming across that,
Pretty
weird.
specific. That's what I'm saying. I don't really, I have no idea if the detectives found out or, what the backstory was, but I'm like, how are you going to beat that? Like, seeing crazy stuff, but like that's got to be the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's really bizarre. Yeah, I wonder that hopefully they, it was probably another little person or short person, who knows, maybe their spouse or something, or I don't know. I'm trying to put it together here because usually somebody
No, well, I mean, if it was a transient, there's a violent transient community, where they're attacking each other in alleys, and they're drunk, they're attacking each other, when they're high or whatever it is. But I mean, that's a generalization, but I have seen a lot of type of incidents like that, like violent, transient because they have a huge homeless population in Albuquerque, huge. So it could have been kind of related to that, because I'd never seen the person before.
That's really strange. Yeah, it's like it's a small percentage of the population. Like I don't think I've been to like a redhead's, like a dead body call for like a redhead, just like a young redhead. Like, because usually when you get older, you lose your hair. I'm just thinking, looking at my own picture here, I'm like, yeah, we're kind of a small percent of the population too. Now, did the little person have orange hair?
No, he had dreadlocks.
Oh, wow. But that's another one. That's really weird.
No, and like I gotta preface it because it's not humorous, the incident. But
right.
Cops, because citizens don't understand. If you're not a cop watching this, listening, you don't understand. If cops have to have a dark, twisted sense of humor. If they do not, they will not be successful being cops. You cannot continue in this career. You will have PTSD and you'll resign, or you'll commit suicide, or you'll go to alcoholism, or you'll beat your wife or dog, right? So
Yep.
Cops have a dark sense of humor. It's a coping mechanism. So, of course, this is nothing we would say to family members. We wouldn't say live on TV. We're not giving each other high fives in public in front of people. Citizens have to understand that. So a little bit of the acting that I do gives it, I bring some of that truth. You know what I mean? So like, what do real cops do? And Office of Medical Examiners, doctors.
Oh yeah, the medical examiners are bad sometimes.
Yeah, when we're dealing with dead bodies, we're like critiquing their tattoos.
Right.
We're kind of like joking about maybe the house or how bad it smells. But of course, we would be not that way with family members around. But if you don't have that coping mechanism, that like what I've gone through, I know what you've gone through, what we've seen. We have that commonality, and it's okay for us to talk about these things amongst ourselves. And you can call it locker room talk or whatever it is, but people don't understand. You have to have.
Yeah, it's like a pressure release valve. You have to have it.
Yeah, but I just preface it because you never know when like just a random citizen, and I think a lot of people do understand, but everyone knows you don't say certain things. You don't smile on a death scene, if there's any possibility of anyone seeing you, even if you're joking about the Cowboys, a football game. You don't want to smile and joke and say yeah, and then you're standing over a dead body.
Right.
So we're trained to, right? But if there's no one around or you're inside and it's just cop to cop, you can talk about anything you want.
Yeah, that's kind of like when we police each other too, because I've been on. I 100% agree with you. This happens on every single death scene, and the worse the death or the worse shape of the body, the more the lightning kind of happens of the situation. But you're right; it's super important to be like, because you're at the beginning you might be alone, or the family member might be separated, and then people start showing up or whatever, and it's like you really need to like keep each other in check and be like, we're getting to a point where, we're smoking and joking here. There's going to be family soon, and we do not want to hurt their feelings, or you kind of have to. And every single one I've been on is like that, without question. And like you said, if you had to stand there in the stoic position with other cops and just stare at this thing that just happened, you would lose your mind. I mean,
yeah,
it would not be good to internalize that.
Yeah, it's called the impossible mandate. What the public expects of us is physically impossible. what the public, all the things that were put on us, that are put on us. It's physically and mentally impossible. So we really try to do the best we can, but we're all human.
Right.
And the last troll I saw on the internet that said something about cops, I made a comment that I saw Stranger Things on Netflix, and they were filming at a Roller King roller ring that I used to work part-time for in Albuquerque. And I was like, oh, that looks familiar. I used to work there. They used to pay me overtime because the kids would get in fights and stuff. And I was like, that's crazy. And then somebody commented, they don't need cops there. We don't need cops everywhere. We don't need all these cops everywhere. And I was like, hey, just to let you know, Roller King was paying me to be there. They wanted me there. And they're like, but still, cops, we don't need all these cops, and this is ridiculous. And I was like, thank you for your support.
What a douche.
But, yeah, I saw that on TV. But anyway.
It's amazing what people, I mean, know your audience. When you comment on someone's post, it's like, are you just trying to start a fight? This guy's a cop. He's got a memory. Do we need to make this into a thing?
I tell you, and I tell people, my social media was private my whole career, since, social media was a thing. And all of a sudden I get in the entertainment industry and I'm like, hey, I'm going to need, recognition or whatever, visibility.
Yeah.
So I made it public. And so I was debating, do I create new social media pages, or do I just try to clean up what I have? And how far back? I mean, there's no way I can go back 12 years and clean up everything, but I've been a lot careful. And like we kind of talked about, Hollywood is very, very liberal. And I have friends that have opposite opinions of me in politics. And I've learned to just be okay with it, because I look at it like this too. I mean, why would you want to alienate more than half your crowd or half your fan base?
Right.
So if I tell you who I voted for and why, and we start arguing about politics, I'm going to lose half my fans. Because when I see an actor like Robert De Niro, I want to see him act. I don't want him,
right.
His politics.
Yeah, he revealed himself as a total jackass to everybody. It's like,
yeah, I don't want to listen to it. So, but I have friends that don't agree with me on things, and you try to look at the commonalities you have, and it's like the love of acting and the entertainment, and there's some things that all humans can agree on, and then I stopped the political post. But I also stopped watching a lot of news, and I don't really engage, and I just don't let it consume me, because it can consume you, and you can get really angry, and the internet and troll culture is just, you can't beat it, so you might as well not even participate in it.
Yeah.
But other cops are naive. They think, well, I'm just trying to educate, and then they like, no, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, it doesn't work. People don't want to hear that. You don't change any mind. Zero minds are changed.
Yeah, exactly. So why do all this arguing? And I get it. Like, we want to hear like-minded people. Like you and me can be friends. You agree with my politics. But if I find out you don't agree with my politics, then we can't be friends. Like, I get it, but I don't put too much weight into it anymore.
Yeah. When you hear their politics are opposite, to me, like you said, you just don't talk about it. So it was not that long ago in society where it was incredibly impolite to go to a party and talk politics or religion. It was like, right. Why would I want to hear these private details about you that I might not agree with? Like, that was like a faux pas.
Stops too. Like, I want to go to a barbershop and talk about sports, but I don't want to talk about, politics. It's like, it sounds like you don't even want me getting my hair cut here. I mean,
it sounds like you hate me.
Anyone that voted for so-and-so is an idiot. Like, that goes both ways.
Yeah, it's tough. And a buddy of mine a while ago made a comment that I think is accurate. 35 years ago, when I was a kid, like in the late 80s, our parents' political views were like Coke and Pepsi. It's like, like, I don't remember our parents, like, ostracizing people from their lives because of politics, or it was like Republican, Democrat, whatever. I remember a little family quibbling at cookouts, but it was always just kind of like it wasn't a big deal. People weren't married. Like, it wasn't part of the fabric of who they were. It was more of like, we have different ideas. Maybe that's because the two parties were morally closer. Like, they had the same idea of moral issues that were closer. Now the morality has been changed. That could be it. But it was a time like the late 80s, man. It seemed like, I don't know. It seemed more fun, you know? Of course I was like 10, so.
Like what if Reagan or Carter was a Democrat or Republican or like Bush, like I didn't care. But as an officer, at least at the local level, you start paying attention. There's a big difference. And I'll tell you, like at the local level, the politics is so bad because it's really restricting officers' rights, and it makes it easier to, like false allegations are part of permanent records on a lot of states now. False allegations, right? And that's not fair.
That's crazy.
But then there's now that are putting things in to protect officers, like I think Florida or Texas, protecting officers from onlookers who must be 8 feet away. And I saw that coming years ago. I said something's going to have to be done because you can't let people have a right to video and right to watch. But there's a culture of people like stepping in the middle of an arrest and putting a phone in your face. And then I've seen it as a supervisor. I've seen it firsthand of cops scared, to grab people and stop people because of all these cameras in their face when they should be just doing their job. And so like those are the extremes of like, depending on what state you're in or what county that you're in of what state, you're either going to have the support of your politicians or you may not. Now, of course, all politicians are going to say, oh, we love police, we support them. We want, accountability, but look at the decisions they make. They're releasing criminals, but then, wanting to get harder on cops for no valid reason.
Yeah. And where you and I work, the areas we work, it's a politician to outwardly denounce police is totally fine and welcomed.
Yeah, the state's attorneys, was it Gascon in San Diego, San Francisco?
Yeah.
I don't know if you got called or whoever's his name, but you have state's attorneys nationwide that are like anti-police. Like they're very, very. They don't have they always used to have a partnership with police. Like the state's attorneys, they're like, we make arrests and give them to the state's attorneys. State's attorneys tell us, hey, good, or hey, next time, why don't you do this, or help us get convictions on your cases. But I've never seen state's attorneys turn against cops like they are in all these areas. And those areas are the ones that need them the most. And it's sad. And it's like, but those are elected positions. It's people putting those people in position. And so like you want police reform, but you have state's attorneys that say, we're just not going to prosecute any of these criminal trespass charges. We're not going to prosecute any, drug possession charge. We're not going to prosecute any, it's a law. What do you mean you're not going to prosecute it?
Yeah, it's kind of like, how dare you? There's plenty of people out there that want you to and want this done.
Yeah, and that's the politics. Like, so I have to do whatever this one elected politician tells me I can or can't do.
Right.
Ignore the law book. Like we're talking about, like some of these states, like I don't know if it's Philly or somewhere, saying like officers can't pull people over for like license plate violation anymore, or not for seatbelt or for
turn signals, stuff like that.
Take the law off the books. How dare you have a law on the books that you don't want us to stop people for? But so I have to find 5 violations before I can pull someone over and give them a ticket for that 6th violation. Because cops pull too many people over, just to say that, just to get in their car. Like then make searches illegal or do away with the crime. But by saying that cops can't pull people over for certain offenses, I think we were starting to bring that back, but the secondary offense versus primary offense. I'm like, what do you mean secondary versus primary? If they're speeding, if they're on their cell phone, if they got no seatbelt, like you see the violation, you pull them over.
Yeah, that's like Virginia did that, I think.
And it makes no sense. And the way I look at it is like, your lawmakers and your politicians and your citizens are confused of what they want, and this is what they're going to get in return. So a decrease in traffic stops, an increase in violent crime, an increase in speeding, an increase in crashes and in deaths.
And then what do you do as a lieutenant when your management goes, hey, you got to tell the boys, our motor vehicle stops are crappy. What the heck? What do you say? You say, well, what do we do?
They're not. because you can't have quotas anyways. So there's never going to be, in the past, agencies have unofficially.
Yeah, you want more activity, not.
Right. And we still want engagement, but you can't blame these officers that are being crucified on TV. You know what I mean? And then things go south, and politicians are making decisions of what we should and shouldn't do. So you still, I still pulled over the car today. We still gave her 4 or 5 tickets because she asked for them. I mean, but the activity's dropped off. It's human nature. They call it depolicing, or like, well, only the crooked cops are the ones that are pouting, and they're it's their way of showing disapproval. No, it's a it's a self protection mechanism. If cops are seeing that, and it's because I can tell my officers, like, I support you no matter what you do. If you're doing it the right way, you mean to do it well, you're doing it the way you were trained, I'm going to support you. You'll be fine. You'll be okay. Don't worry about anything. And years ago, that used to mean something when your sergeant says, I have your back, or lieutenant. But I can't say that because these guys aren't dumb. They watch TV. They know that it's the mayor of Atlanta that's firing officers because they don't, what they did looked right. And what's funny is, like, the federal law in case law says it doesn't matter what the mayor thinks looks okay. It's a reasonableness standard of an officer, given the same set of circumstances and the same experience and the same point of view. Would they have done that? Is that appropriate to do? So, like, these officers aren't dumb. They realize, like, it doesn't matter. The chief can sign off on it. It's above the chief of police. It's your mayor, your executive, your governor.
Yeah, if they're coming for you, they're going to get you.
Your president. When your president has asks an officer to meet with a subject to have a beer summit, that's the president of the United States getting involved in local politics.
Yeah.
Right. And then a minute after that happened, I'm making arrests, domestic violence arrests. The male half hit, injured a female. I arrested the male half, and he's telling me he knows Obama. He's calling Obama. He's going to get out of jail. He's going to have my badge. I'm like, what? Because you hit your wife and I'm arresting you? You're going to call Obama and it's my fault?
You're not going to be invited to the beer summit either. You're just going to be fired.
Am I going to have to go to a beer summit and say, I'm sorry for any misunderstanding? Like, come on. Like it sets a bad precedent either way. I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah. Victor, I've got you here. I've held you more than an hour. One more question for you. Intense or terrifying call?
Man, you name it. Like, I was on the SWAT team, so I've been on, like, barricades. Here, I give you one. I was a sergeant responding to elderly male, possible suicidal, holding a shotgun on himself and family members. So pretty serious. Officers get there before me. They get there for a while. I hear over the radio an officer says, I have a clear shot. Do I have permission to take the shot? And I was really mad at this officer, and I told him, and I said over the radio because I had to respond. I said, I can't tell you whether or not to take the shot. That's up to you. I said, but we're on our way. Just stand by if you can.
Yeah.
Sir, and if you're asking for approval, like you're a sniper or something.
Like a military target.
Yeah, I'm clear. I have the target in sights. Am I clear to take the shot? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't tell you if you can shoot someone or not. And shoot who? With what? So that was crazy enough. I was really upset. I get to the scene, and sure enough, I see an elderly male dealing with dementia with a shotgun, and he's, like, pointing it at the ground. We have 2 officers in a tactical L, and one officer's got a shield and a taser. I mean, this is a shotgun. He's got a shield and a taser, and another officer's got his handgun pointed at him. And I'm, like, in the doorway looking at all this. And so I'm trying to coordinate our response, and it's like we're already in there, so I don't know if we should just try to back out safely or how we're going to, and he is elderly, so do we tackle him? What do we do? So that was probably pretty intense. And I mean, there's so many, I can give you so many, but what they ended up doing was tasing him while his shotgun was pointing down. We took him into custody. We got him help. We found out, I don't know if the shotgun wasn't loaded or it was, but it was inert. Basically, it wasn't functioning, and we didn't know that. And we put a shot in. And so that was pretty crazy. But to add in the officer asking me on the radio, can he take the shot? And then, like, and then when I'm on scene, I had to be very specific. I'm like, if you have the shot with the taser, use the taser if you're able to.
Taser.
Yeah, I don't want to say just, take a shot now. But I've had so many different crazy calls, but that was probably a pretty intense one.
Absolutely. And was this guy, did he have dementia or something, or was he just
dementia?
Dementia is insane. The place I work for on Cape Cod as a elderly population, and there was a guy at the Council on Aging there that was like 62, and he had like early onset dementia. Spooky that disease, whatever's in the food, whatever we're doing is not the environment we surround ourselves with. There's something going on, but there, to see somebody 62 who looks like a healthy guy just have that kind of dementia is scary, because those people can be very dangerous, especially when they're able-bodied.
Yes, I know.
Don't need to tell you. Victor Dobro, thank you so much for coming on, brother. What shows can we see on?
Well, I don't know if HBO's We Own the City still filming. I mean, I'm still showing on HBO. I'm in episodes 1 and 5. I am filming currently a show on Apple TV Plus. It's not out yet, but it's still just filming. It's called Lady in the Lake with Natalie Portman. I'm filming that, and those are the two big projects that I've done, and I'm doing, and I'm just doing a lot of other like smaller independent projects. But I'm on social media, and I'm on like the IMDb. I call it like the actor's online resume, so you can see credits. Like I was on Panic 911 like a couple nights ago for like the dramatization reenactments.
Cool.
Did a year ago, but like I'm on another episode of Panic 911 that should be out in a couple weeks. And it's funny because I actually play a homeowner instead of a cop on this one, and they had other actors playing cops, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I'm playing a homeowner and not the cop. Hey, that's new for me because I'm always a cop.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you're making progress.
Yeah, and it's cool if I can do it. Yeah, I like being a regular actor too, not just acting like I'm myself as a cop.
Hell yeah. So I'll put in the show notes for the show. Want me to link your social media?
Sure. Yeah. In IMDb, you just search Victor Dobro, but I have I have a public Facebook page, Victor M Dobro, and I have two now Instagram pages, Victor Dobro Official and Robo Dobro. And I do a lot of behind the scenes content of like shows that I'm doing, films.
Oh, I love that.
Pictures with that, like with John Bernthal and these guys. Like I've taken pictures with them in the makeup trailer, on set, in between takes. And fans really like the behind the scene content. And usually, most of the time, I got to save all the behind the scenes content until like the project airs. And that's just like a industry. Right. You kind of get in trouble if you don't do that. If you do it the wrong way.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah. But for like independent projects, sometimes they want you to help promote it. So you do, you help them promote the project.
That's awesome, man. Well, congratulations, brother. Now that we've connected and we're basically friends, when you make it big, you're going to have to still pick up the phone for me, have you come back on.
I will do. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure, man. So let me throw you in the green room real quick. I can just do the outro and then I'll come back to you. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 107, Victor Dobro. Super interesting interview. Wow. He's got a lot going on, and he's doing it. He's making it. It just goes to show you. Here's a guy. Dream was to be a cop and also acting. Is getting both done. Pretty awesome. Just go for it. If you want to do something, go after it. So great stories, both from police work and just his life in general, what he's got going on. Pretty awesome. Thank you for listening. 5-star review, please. I know I harp on it, and I even say I harp on it every episode, but it helps out on Apple. 5-star reviews. Thank you for that. You want to be a guest? thingspleasesee.com. Scroll down, click on Be a Guest. Shoot me a message. You should probably have been a cop for a little while. Have a few stories in mind. I'll reach out and schedule you up. Always looking for new guests, and appreciate everybody who reaches out and contacts me. Thank you for all the new monthly supporters. That is really awesome. I appreciate it. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram and I think Twitter, which I never use, but there's also a Twitter account. So follow the social media stuff, guys. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.